Retro.
Hi, this is Claudia Gray, the author of several Star Wars books, and you are listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. May the Force be with you.
Hello, and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And as we usually do, we're closing out the week with another edition of Star Wars news. Jay, you want to remind everybody what our social media contacts are before we get started?
You got it. My pleasure as always, Dennis. We are on Facebook and Instagram very conveniently at Podcast Stardust.
Okay, the dish is aligned, the signal is boosted to maximum output, the shield is down, we are now broadcasting to the galaxy. This is the week's Star Wars news. Up first in movie news, the British Film Institute is going to screen an original cut of Star Wars. This will be the first time it's happened in years. And so they are planning to do that on the festival's opening night on June 12th. So this is interesting, an interesting development. I wasn't aware that there was any original cuts left at this point.
Yeah.
What do you think at this point? Was it something you would go out of your way to see? I mean, I'm not going over to the United Kingdom for this, but assuming it were nearby, would you be up for that, or what do you think?
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to, hop a plane across the pond. But I'll tell you, if it was around here, anywhere near me, I would totally jump on it because I will be honest. I mean, we've gotten so used to the special editions and, the versions that we have now that I would totally want to see the, original version. And I just think that's super cool. It's almost like going back and, looking at the first editions of a particular book or, like just anything that's along those same kind of lines. I just dig that. I think that's amazing. What do you think? Like, would you do it?
If it were going to be available for like a week or something like that, but I wouldn't fight for tickets for a single showing of that original cut. I know there's a whole lot of people that are just clamor for an original cut of the movie. And as we've heard, that's just generally not going to be made available because George Lucas prefers the special editions and everyone still kind of honors his wishes on that. And yeah, if they were going to do something, and they very may well do this in a couple of years when they were celebrating the 50th anniversary of A New Hope, if they're going to put the movie back in theaters, then yeah, I'd go do that for, any type of a week-long run or something like that. But I wouldn't go fight for tickets for one single showing of it. I guess that's my stance on it. I like the special editions. I enjoyed it in the theater. I've enjoyed the updates that they made. The Han shooting first thing is the only part that I don't particularly like about all that. I know a lot of people aren't happy with the whole Jabba showing up in the movie the way he did and Han stepping on his tail. Yes, that was a bit clumsy the way they did that, but still I like the additions. I like the updates to the special effects. But yeah, I think there's something to be said. If A New Hope was going to be shown in theaters, and I would go see it. I mean, the last time I saw A New Hope outside of my house was when it was Star Wars in concert, and the Dallas Symphony Orchestra did that, and that was a fantastic experience. And I'm definitely going to go see Revenge of the Sith in a couple weeks when that's in theaters. And I get it. A lot of people are like, why would I go to theaters to see a movie that I could see at home? Well, there's something to be said about the communal experience of going to a movie, especially for something like Star Wars that's so beloved, and seeing it with a lot of fellow fans.
Definitely. And I'm with you. I mean, I totally respect the special editions. And as you very eloquently put it, the way that George Lucas has arrived at that being the standard for the movie itself. But I mean, there's definitely that nostalgia part of it that just going back to the original version is just super cool. I just think that's super cool. And I hope it's not disrespectful to George Lucas. So George, if you're listening, no disrespect, but
Yeah.
very cool to see.
Indeed. All right. Well, moving on, we have quite a bit of book news. And up first, there was the announcement that the Revenge of the Sith novelization is getting a special edition. So, speaking of special editions, the movie's not getting anything updated, but the book is. And of course, this was the novelization written by Matthew Stover that was released in 2005 concurrently with the movie. This updated special edition that's coming out in celebration of the 20th anniversary of the movie will be a fully annotated book with over 150 annotations from Matt Stover. And then it'll have an acetate jacket with foil stamping, a paper overboard bookcase, gilded and stained edges, illustrated full color end papers, and a red satin ribbon market. And it'll be available on October 14th for the not so low price of $60. What do you think, Jay? You going to upgrade your copy of the Revenge of the Sith novelization?
I probably won't, quite honestly, but I mean, this is gorgeous. I mean, let's
Mm-hmm.
just be honest. And I think for anyone who is looking to add something to their collection, especially if they collect books, because this is the 20th anniversary, I think it would be a wonderful addition to someone's collection. As General Grievous would say, make a fine addition, you know. But as
Right.
far as, for me, I probably won't pick it up. I mean, if somebody wants to get it for me and give it to me, I'll be happy to accept it. But I mean, Matthew Stover's novel is definitely, I mean, it's been acclaimed as one of the best Star Wars novels out there, and I would definitely concur with that. But I don't know if it warrants me spending another $60 on a special edition. But how do you feel?
I'm with you. I mean, there was a time when I was a completist and I would have definitely picked up something like this, but I am happy with my first edition
Hmm.
copy of the novelization. I am curious about the annotations. That is the one thing that would tempt me to get this, just to read
Yes.
through and see what those annotations are. It is a beautiful edition. You can go on Gizmodo as the link I found this at, but if you just do special edition Revenge of the Sith novelization, you can find plenty of links with pictures of this. And it's neat how the edges of the paper are red, and then it says this is how it feels to be Anakin Skywalker forever. They got that printed on the paper there, which is kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
And just the cover is awesome. It's got a silhouette of Darth Vader with the Revenge of the Sith logo, Episode 3 in the middle of it, and then it's got, I'm assuming, Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting on the edge of a cliff over a sea of lava, but that's a scene that was not actually in the book. But at any rate, yeah, if I were in my completionist days, then yes, this would be something I would add. But at this point, I just go for a copy of the book and I'm
Hmm.
satisfied with that.
Hmm.
I've got a few exceptions to that. There's a couple copies of books that I've got autographed, and the way I did that was by doing a Kickstarter campaign or something like that. And so I've got multiple copies of those books in my collection or whatever. But I just don't generally buy more than one copy of the book unless I've worn out the original copy of
Right.
this.
Yep. Yep.
So I've also been gifted a couple copies of the Legends Essential Collection version of some of the books, and so I keep those in my collection. But yeah, I just yeah, I don't collect as a completist anymore. I just collect for a copy of something and the things that I want, and
Hmm.
that means that I don't necessarily get every version of everything, and
Right.
it's
Yeah.
just so much space that type of stuff requires.
It does. Yep. And that's the thing, again, unless you're, like you said, a completist or someone that's really collecting these things, I mean, it's great to have. And if it makes someone happy and brings them joy, I think that's amazing. But I
Mm,
think it's uh, something to mention about the annotations is that, like, I'm thinking to myself as you were saying that, like, okay, maybe I'll just wait until it comes out in the library, and then
mhm.
I'll be able to just check it out and read them all and then go ahead and just return it, and I'll be fine with that.
Right, and I'm also assuming that once this book is out, if there's anything particularly interesting or newsworthy, it'll show up all over the internet at
Yeah,
some point. Someone will write
for
a story, and then everyone else will use their AI bots to copy that story and put it on their websites, and we'll find out about those things one way or the other, kind of like the deleted scenes from
yeah,
movies these days. But
there you go. Yep.
all right, well, once again, that'll be available on October 14th for $60. That's not all we got in book news. Surprisingly, with really just about from the date we're recording this, what are we, like 12 days away from Celebration?
Mhm. So close.
StarWars.com made a whole bunch of announcements about upcoming books. And so let's go through this.
Yeah.
This is just surprising. You and I were starting to talk about this before we recorded, but then we decided to save discussion for the podcast here. But I'm just really surprised they announced all this right before Celebration. I would have thought this would be something that they would have announced for the first time from the floor, but here we go. Up first, we have Master of Evil, written by Adam Christopher, who wrote Shadow of the Sith, which we talked about on the podcast previously. And this is a novel coming out on November 11th, 2025, which will chronicle Vader's haunting pursuit for the power to conquer death. Sign me up. I want this book.
Yes. Yeah, this one is so cool. And Adam Christopher, he was one of those kind of authors that I don't want to say surprised me necessarily with how good he writes, but then again, it was like Shadow of the Sith, as you said, it was just such a mesmerizing book. But I'll tell you what, the cover of this one is haunting. It's gorgeous. Do we know who did the cover?
No, I did
I'm
not
just
see that
curious.
information in the
Yeah.
article. And
But it is just, amazing.
I was gonna say I didn't actually link to the story in the.
I found it.
It's
all good.
I know you're capable.
StarWars.com, great source. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, I've updated the link. All right. No, the cover is quite cool. It's a version of Anakin peering out from behind a mask that looks like it's in some disrepair on there, but very, very haunting. This is like the only real piece of canon fiction that they've announced in this batch of books. And that's primarily what I'm about. Mainly because all of these other resources tend to be rather pricey. And but we'll just get into some of that. Up first, this is the one, if I was going to get one of these other ones besides this is what I'd probably get. And it's Doug Chiang, The Cinematic Legacy and the Star Wars Legacy. And the description is this 2-volume, 800 pages, deluxe slipcase collection celebrates Academy Award winning artist and designer Doug Chiang, Lucasfilm Senior Vice President and Executive Design Director. And we have your first glimpse of the cover art, which you can find over on StarWars.com. From the art department of Star Wars, the Phantom Menace to production designer on The Mandalorian, Chiang's genius fingerprints are all over the visual language of Star Wars. And this special collection, out December 2nd, 2025, celebrates the galaxy and beyond. That's just they didn't say what this is going to go for in the story. And the cover that I briefly mentioned there is some Naboo starfighters that they have on this. 800 pages of his concept art could be really pretty cool. But I just kind of wondering again, how much is it going to cost? And is it worth paying for that?
Price.
What's that?
I got your price.
Oh, and how much is it going for?
Well, depending on where you go. So on the Abrams Books website, it's listed for pre-order at $275.
There you go.
And then on Amazon, it's listed currently for pre-order at $209. So there you have it.
So really expensive either way that you go on that. And that's just it. It's like, do I want to pay that for something that I'd probably flip through once or on occasion? I mean, I can imagine it might be a really cool resource to have, but at the same time, that's just, I don't know that I'd get I would look at it often enough to justify that price putting into my collection.
Right.
But what do you think?
Well, it's beautiful. I mean, Doug Chiang is the master, beyond all masters. But my only thing about this is, as much as I think it would be, there's the cinematic legacy and then the Star Wars legacy, as you mentioned. So it's 2 volumes. So the cinematic legacy, as I'm reading the description over on Amazon.com, it talks about that being the companion volume, which is dedicated to Doug Chiang's work prior to his arrival at Lucasfilm, and showcases his early work from student films and commercial work to working at ILM, creating designs for Back to the Future, Alien, Judgment Day, Death Becomes Her, Spawn, The Mask, and Jumanji, among others. So for me personally, I mean, that's all interesting and good. But if I'm going to be spending my money, I really want the Star Wars legacy,
Yeah.
not the cinematic legacy. No offense to any other body of work that Doug Chang has done, because, like I said, he's the master of all masters, but I'm just not interested in that. So I wish that they would break this up into 2 different volumes that would be available separately, because I might gobble up the Star Wars Legacy,
Even at
edition.
$125, $130?
Possibly, and it's
Yeah.
coming out really close to Christmas, so it would be, a nice little gift idea for somebody maybe.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah,
No,
it
it's
is
cool.
steep at $125. You're right.
Yeah, I hope to find a copy somewhere and flip through it, and maybe people at Celebration Japan will be so lucky to kind of see some previews of that. I mean, we already know he's
Mhm.
presenting there, but
Right, right.
okay. Well, next on the list we have "I Find Your Lack of Candy Disturbing," and this is the next kind of Star Wars book for kids of all ages by Jeffrey Brown. And it's described as "all treats and no tricks, we promise." This fun greeting card and a book features some of our favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away and all their ghoulish glory, including this fun new cover. Enjoy new exclusive artwork by artist Jeffrey Brown and heartwarming Halloween sentiments throughout. Available August 5th, 2025. So well in advance of Halloween on this
Yeah.
one. So I like his work. I mean, I've had a bunch of those books in the past. You know, Darth Vader and Son, and the one that I can't remember what he called the one where it was Darth Vader and Leia.
Oh,
But
yeah,
there's
I'm trying to look over on my shelf to see if I can find it, but I can't think of it either right this second.
yeah, and those books tend to be they just tend to be fun and something fun to flip through. And so this might be something that I actually go pick up just for the fun of it. But I'm sure it's not going to be $275
Nope,
for one thing. So
$10.
yeah, there you go.
Well, I have a feeling that this might be something that you and I might have to do around Halloween, because it would
Yeah,
be
we'll
a
see how
fun
much of his
little
Halloween
thing.
story it actually tells before we
Yeah.
commit to that. But I was thinking the same thing too. So we'll see. A little bit closer to time.
There you go.
All right. The fourth book that was announced was The Art of Star Wars: The Acolyte. So straight from the High Republic, art enthusiasts will get their best look yet at the Disney Plus series, The Acolyte, in the most wonderful new addition to the popular The Art of collection, written by Kristen Baver, who's done a lot of stuff like this recently, with a forward
Mhm.
by showrunner and creator Leslie Headland. Fans of May, Osha, and Oh Yes, the Stranger should get their hands on The Art of Star Wars: The Acolyte starting October 7th, 2025. It's available to pre-order now. Sounds cool, but I'm probably not going to add that to my collection. Again,
Mhm.
I don't mean to be dismissive of all this stuff, but again, for space concerns and everything else, I'm mostly focusing on novels, and I'm just being more selective about these other types of books. The art collections, or the concept art and stuff like that. The notable exceptions have been like Art of the High Republic, simply
Right.
because that's a great resource to have while I'm reading one of the novels, and the like.
Yes. Totally agree. I have
Yeah,
to say, I'm not a big fan of this cover. I don't know, just the sisters, May and Osha, they just I don't know. It's just something kind of weird about their facial expressions on this, but that's just me. But one thing I will
it almost
say,
looks like an album cover.
you're right, it kinda
Yeah,
does.
yeah,
But if this would be definitely of interest to, just like some of the other visual guides, anyone that's doing any kind of cosplay, because,
sure.
just the pages that they've pulled out here for May, for example, you can really see some great detail, and then, of course, they go into, exactly what her throwing knives look like, and her macro binoculars, and her, whip coil, and all the things, so that's kinda and even a lot of on Pip too, so if somebody was wanting to, like, 3D print and do some things with Pip to have, that companion, then that would be a great guide.
Indeed. Okay, and then the next book on the list is, and I promise this is not going to go on forever. We only got a few left. The Acolyte Visual Guide. Lucasfilm creative executive Pablo Hidalgo draws fans into the twilight years of the High Republic in the stunning The Acolyte Visual Guide, complete with all the characters, creatures, vehicles, technology, and locations fans saw on the screen. Take your first look inside the new companion, available in the UK June 5th, and the US June 17th. I think that image that you were looking at was actually from the visual guide.
Yeah,
there.
now that you're saying that, I'm
Yeah.
looking at the StarWars.com website, and I was looking at that. I thought it was underneath the Acolyte description, but it's above the
Right.
Acolyte visual guide description. So that is
Yeah.
completely on me. That's my bad. For
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
that's wanting
And
cosplay, that's the one you want.
yeah, I do have some of these visual guides for some of the movies.
Mhm.
And I've had some others in the past that I can no longer find anymore. And they're a mixed bag. Every once in a while, Pablo Hidalgo, he almost does almost all these. He'll hide like some detail in there that like crops up later. Like the name of Crate, I think, was in the Rogue One visual guide. Um,
Mm.
for
Mhm.
instance. So, stuff
Mhm.
like that. And so there's teases and stuff like that. And like you said, you can get an up close look at some of the stuff that great resource images and the like. But other times, I've heard him talk about this on other podcasts where he's given an image and then there's a whole bunch of like lines drawn to things and he has to like come up with stuff, which may or not actually be helpful information to have. There's a lot of stuff that he has to fill in on those pages.
Oh, yeah.
He does a good job for the most part, but anyway. All right. Then we have Star Wars The Blueprints. The newest edition of Star Wars The Blueprints, also by Pablo Hidalgo, pulls straight from the Lucasfilm archives, celebrating the artists and designers responsible for some of the most recognizable vehicles and technology ever put to screen. Available in the UK on October 2nd and the US on October 7th. This might be the one if I were to get one of these resource type books. This might be the one I pick out of this collection here.
Yeah?
Um, yeah,
That's cool.
I've got other blueprint type books that they've done for Star Wars in the past and pulling them open, especially when you get like a big ship or something like that and seeing all the different compartments and where things are in that ship,
Oh, yeah.
and is really pretty cool to see. So yeah, this is if I was going to do one of these, this was probably the one I would do.
That's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
anybody that's into, like, schematics and things like that, like, if my dad was into Star Wars and he was still around, I think that this would definitely be something that would really catch his interest and really captivate him, and it is really cool. I mean, just from the things that they show here, with the Jedi Starfighters, I mean, it's obvious what they are, but like you said, I mean, just to be able to see the scope and scale of some of these things, and then, I mean, for me personally, I do love interior design, so I like
Uh-huh.
looking at, like, the elevations and the plans and things, so they have, things like Maz's castle and whatnot in there, and I think that would be really super cool to be able to see that, and just the amount of detail that was put into all of these things just blows my mind. It really
Mhm.
does.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. These are fun. These are fun to explore, especially when you get the layout of, Maz Kanata's castles, one they've got here. Just seeing how that whole where everything is on that, and
Mhm.
being able to say, okay, now I get it. When they came in here and they did yada, or this is when they went underneath the into the dungeon and stuff like that. That can be fun. Getting an idea of how things work, where the droid fits in, and in some of the starfighters and stuff. So again, that's a favorite of mine of this list here. All right, the last one that they announced was Star Wars Women of the Galaxy, and this is actually an updated edition of Star Wars Women of the Galaxy, and it'll be celebrating new characters, including the women of Andor, Omega from Star Wars: The Bad Batch, Peli Motto from The Mandalorian, Avar Kriss from The High Republic, and Shin Hati of Ahsoka fame, with dazzling artwork for each entry. And you can add it to your collection pretty quickly here on April 29th, 2025. Um,
Alright.
I didn't pick up the last edition of this book, so I'm likely not going to get this one either. Mainly just because it's nothing against it. It's just that this type of character information is available on Wikipedia
Right.
and StarWars.com's databank and the like.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so again, just thinking of the space requirements and stuff and just not being a completist, I think this would be a pass for me.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's fun to be able to look at the illustrations and they're beautiful. I
Mhm.
mean, the just being able to look at the way that some of these characters are portrayed, especially Shin Hati is the one that's really catching my attention in this particular preview. But yeah, again, unless it's something that someone is really wanting to add to their collection, for me personally, I think it'll be a pass as well.
Yeah. I still think you should cosplay Shin Hati. So
Oh, I would love to, honestly.
okay, well, that's what we got for the book announcements. Now, they did tease on StarWars.com that they're going to have more to announce at Star Wars Celebration. And I guess this was just a way of getting people hyped up for that, I suppose. But
Mhm.
I mean, they're going to probably have to talk more about the future with the High Republic coming to an end here. So
Right.
we will cover whatever they announce at Celebration on a future edition of the podcast. So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we got two other stories. Up first, Oscar Isaac is no longer able to attend Star Wars Celebration to Japan. And they put
Yeah.
out on various social media accounts that due to changes in his production schedule, Oscar Isaac is no longer able to attend Star Wars Celebration Japan. And then those of you who had bought photo ops and autograph tickets will be able to refund those or exchange them, I think, for other opportunities there. Bummer for those that are going to attend. This also means that there is no Oscar Isaac Poe Dameron panel, which I was
Right.
kind of looking
Yeah.
forward to,
Me
simply
too.
because in the hopes that maybe he was going to announce some future project. But I get it. I mean, this is a hazard of cons that you get excited
Mhm.
for someone to be there, and I think, as we've always said, for cons in general, you better make sure you want to just go to the con, because
Yes.
if you're going for a specific person, there's no guarantee that they'll actually be there, because they frequently have to cancel when they get new work or things happen when it comes down to that.
Right.
But still, he's one of the bigger names that was going to be there, so it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it really is, especially because, as you said, he's got a whole panel that he was
Mhm.
going to be front and center for. So, but I mean, such is the nature of the beast. I mean, in that business, you got to pivot, and that's what happens sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of people have been speculating that this change in his schedule is so that he can be participate in the filming of Avengers Doomsday.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but I
Okay.
mean, that's all speculation as far as I know. I
Sure.
mean,
Sure.
they just did that big teaser video that went on for 5 hours, where every 15 minutes they put they scanned the back of the director's chairs, or and they
Oh,
had the different
yeah.
name of everybody on that. And now he wasn't
Mhm.
on those, but they've also said that there's more people that are going to be in this movie than what they announced. So maybe he is doing that, but that would seem like if he has to miss Celebration Japan, then he would be taking on a larger role than I think we're anticipating, if he is in fact going to be playing Moon Knight in that movie. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
all right. Well, then the last story we have is that Star Wars Outlaws is coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. And then the story that they've put on this is that Star Wars Outlaws is coming to Nintendo Switch 2 in 2025. This was the first open world Star Wars game. We've not actually reviewed it here because neither one of us have finished playing it. I started and I never actually got, other than a couple hours at the beginning, I never got around to playing it any longer. But if you forgot, in Star Wars Outlaws, fans play as cunning scoundrel Kay Vess, performed by Humberly Gonzalez, and our loyal companion Nix, which is voiced by D. Bradley Baker from Star Wars The Bad Batch, as they attempt one of the greatest heists the Outer Rim has ever seen. Seeking the means to start a new life, players will join Kay and Nix as they fight, steal, and outwit their way through the galaxy's crime syndicates and join the most wanted. So, yeah, it's cool that there's a new Star Wars property coming out for this new edition of the Switch. However, I would be a little cautious on this one, because and not to get into politics, but fact of life is that we're dealing with an ever-changing landscape of tariffs, which has led Nintendo to change when the pre-order date for the Switch 2 is going to be. So, um,
Mhm. Mhm.
be flexible with your expectations is all I'm saying.
No, I think that's fair. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering though, I mean, was this kind of always in the works to expand from one platform to another? Or do you think that this is kind of an afterthought just because of the fact that the sales weren't as, good as predicted and that I mean, they just recently passed I think it was the 1 million mark
Mhm.
for the sales or whatever, but yeah, I mean, is it what do you think? I mean, has it always been planned or is this an
Well,
afterthought?
I know plenty of people who enjoyed the game.
Mhm,
It's just that it came out at a time that I didn't have a whole lot of time for it, and frankly, I don't pick up my PlayStation controller all that often anymore right now. Just
mhm.
schedules being what they are. This you and I were talking about the stages of our life right now, and we are so
Oh,
busy,
yeah.
like
Yeah,
everybody else for that matter, but
sure.
busier than usual. And anyway, I thought it was a fine game. I know plenty of people who've enjoyed it. It didn't have quite the mass appeal as some other Star Wars games, like the Jedi games, Fallen
Mhm.
Order and Survivor, and the like. But I think it simply wasn't being put on the original Switch, because I don't know that that version of the console had the capabilities to run this game. necessarily. And now, because it was available on PC and PlayStation and Xbox and the like, so there's no reason not to port it over to the Switch if it has the capabilities to it, because we see this all the time. It's a game comes out on one console, then eventually get ports over to another one. The Indiana Jones game that was on Xbox is now coming to PlayStation 5.
Mhm.
Is a reverse example of things that typically happen. So yeah, why not? And the Switch 2 is going to need games, and this is one that doesn't need to be made from scratch. So I think that's more the reason than anything.
Sure, and I didn't mean that to take away from, how good the video game
Oh, of
itself
course
is,
not.
just,
Yeah, no,
pointing
you
out
didn't say
the
anything wrong.
sales.
It's not been the well
No.
supposed to.
Oh, I
It's
know.
it's not been the most well received Star Wars game out there, and that's not
Mhm.
controversial to say. Whether anyone enjoyed it in particular, that's their business, and no one can tell them they're wrong about their
Sure.
opinion on that. And I don't, you clearly weren't saying that. So, um, yeah, I think that's only the reason. It's just it's another platform. It could find new life there, and therefore, why not explore it?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the Jedi video games, super excited to get some news about that. Hopefully we get some more news soon.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be fun if they sprung something on people at Celebration, but I'm not
Yeah.
certain they're far enough along to do that. But we'll see.
Mhm.
Um, but I do know there's that turn-based strategy game. I think that they're going to be talking about at Celebration. So we'll see. We'll see.
Ooh,
All kinds of things can happen. They do find ways of surprising us
this is
there.
true.
Yeah.
Very much
I
so.
mean, they announced the Willow series at Star Celebration 2022, and
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I remember every time I turn around, it's like they were playing that on the live stage screen. So maybe we'll get something like that. We'll find out.
Sure.
All right. Well, then that'll do it for this week's look at Star Wars news here on Podcast Stardust. Thank you all for joining us. We would appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. And then once you've done that, rating and reviewing are things that you can do to help us out and help others discover the show. If you want to find more episodes of the podcast beyond what you're going to find on your podcatcher, head over to retrozap.com, which is home to the RetroZap Podcast Network. And all previous 871 episodes of the show are there, along with a lot of other great podcasts covering all corners of geek fandom. So make sure you do that. Jay, you want to go ahead and hit everyone again with those social media contacts and where else we can be found online?
Absolutely. So we're super easy to find. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And you can also hit up our Pinterest boards and you can find all kinds of fun Star Wars things over there, from, party planning to nail ideas for your fingernails, kind of thing. All kinds of fun stuff. So hit that up in our show notes. And you can also check out our YouTube channels. So we have two YouTube channels, the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. So if you do head over to either one of those links in our show notes, you can subscribe and also interact as well on those. And we would love it if you would leave comments and let us know, what you're most excited for in these book reviews or anything else that we just talked about, as well as any of our other shows. And we also have a T Public store. So if you'd like to support the show even further, you can pick up one of 7 different show logo designs that are available on all kinds of fun things, from t-shirts and sweatshirts to coffee mugs and even wall hangings and baby onesies. So that link will also be in our show notes.
I always kind of laugh when you end talking about what's available over there with baby onesies.
I
Um,
don't know why that keeps maybe I'm, putting that out in the universe. No, I'm not really ready to be a grandma just yet. Just say, just say.
oh, that's funny. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, Jay. You want to remind everybody what you got going on in cosplay?
Sure. So you can always catch me on my Instagram, which is at j.simpscosplay. I'm always having fun over there with Ahsoka, Hera, 2 different versions, the Fourth Sister, as well as my original concept Mandalorian. And I do have some things coming up for May, especially, the big holiday of May the 4th, as well as at least one other appearance in May. So as soon as I finalize those, I will let everybody know what those are, when those are, and where you can find me. But until then, like I said, you can always find me at j.snipscosplay.
All right. Upcoming on the show on Monday, we will be doing the next episode from season 2 of the Clone Wars as we continue our rewatch. And then on Wednesday, we are doing the second edition of Laugh It Up Fuzzball, which is the series we started about a month ago, where we look at Star Wars fan films and other related projects that parody and satirize Star Wars. And we're going to be looking at Troops from 1997, which is a lot of fun. So make sure you join us for that. But with that said, thanks for listening to episode 872 Podcast Stardust, everybody. Have a great weekend. And until next time, may the Force be with you.